Okay, so we have all of our background elements onto their corresponding layers added onto the scene. Everything is sized and positioned except for Sally, which we're going to do right now. So I'm going to unlock Sally, click the character, and place her in a comfortable place on the scene. So, and keep in mind we can always adjust all of this later on, as long as Sally is the right size. And actually, you know, why don't we make her bigger? I mean, she is a dinosaur. She's a healthy young dinosaur, so that's too big. You know, something like that. Yeah, that's great. Okay, so I have this already timed out. So this should be pretty smooth and pretty easy. The first thing I want to do is I want to make invisible the foreground because that's kind of distracting right now. So what I have this timed out is to be about 312 frames. So if I scroll my timeline, I'm going to want all of my layers to be visible for 312 frames. So I'll find that on my timeline. Here we are. And I will make a selection on all of them by just clicking and dragging down. And I'm going to use the hotkey F5. And we can look down here at the bottom of the timeline. We can see that it is actually on 312. And that is exactly 13 seconds. Now we'll go back to the beginning. So how this starts is I kind of want Sally to walk onto the stage. Sort of this grand appearance. And for the meantime, she'll be off stage. So I'm going to click on Sally and holding down Shift so I don't move her up or down. I just want to move her left or right. Holding down Shift, I'm going to drag her to the left off of the stage. Right around there is fine. And I'm going to make a keyframe at frame 48. So right here, for Sally, I'm going to make a keyframe. Call it F6. Or hotkey F6. And on this keyframe, Sally is now on the stage. To about here. Remember our action safe, so we want her within that safe zone. Okay. At this frame, the background starts to move. So, starting with the midground, I have to unlock it first. Create a keyframe here as well for the midground, F6. And now I have to make an ending keyframe for the background. I'm going to stop the background at frame 216. So I'll have to go over here and find it. Right here. At frame 216. Make sure it's the background, or the midground. F6. Now this is going to be a little bit of trial and error, but I will hold down Shift again because I don't want the background to move up or down. Hold down Shift while I click and drag also to the left. And since Sally's walking through town, I'm going to say she walks through a good portion of it. We can always test it. So to test it, we need to make some keyframes. Pardon me, some tweens. So first, let's tween Sally by creating a classic tween. That is simply right-clicking anywhere in between two keyframes, right-clicking, and going up and clicking the option Create Classic Tween. Again, I'm going to do the same thing for the background we just moved. And by hitting Enter, we can actually watch it. Now notice that Sally's not going to actually be stepping, because that will only play when we create a Swift video. Alright, that doesn't look too bad. Hit Enter again to stop the timeline. Now if you want to see what it looks like with Sally actually walking, we will want to hit Command Return or Control Enter for the PC. We'll export a little video. And I know this building's in the way, but it does look like the background, I just got lucky right there that the background is moving at the same pace that she seems to be walking. Okay, that's cool. So now I'm going to lock the midground, and we're going to do the same thing for the foreground. I'm going to make it visible, and I'm going to unlock it. Again, I'm going to create a keyframe at frame 48 for the foreground by using the hotkey F6, and it's not going to move until she comes onto the stage anywhere. So it's going to look like she comes onto the stage and then the camera follows her as she jaunts through the streets of Paris at night. So to give it a little bit of more depth, the foreground is actually going to be moving faster than the background, or the midground. It's kind of confusing. So we can see how much space is actually covered by the midground by going all the way to the last frame. Same frame for the foreground. I'm going to create a new keyframe. Let's zoom out a little bit just so we can have an idea of what we're doing here. And now holding down the Shift key and the arrow, I'm going to click and drag to the left again. And this should cover a little bit more space, and hopefully that's enough. All the way to the end, the last house. That's definitely more. So this should look like it's moving faster. How much faster? We might have to test to find out. So I'll right click, create a classic tween, and then export a Swift, and we'll see what it looks like. It's definitely moving faster. Alright, we're almost set. So now at this keyframe, at 2:16, I'm going to put a new keyframe for Sally, F6, and now all the way to 3:12, I'm going to create a new keyframe using the hotkey F6. And in this end keyframe, holding down Shift, I'm going to move Sally to the right. Sorry, make sure that your other layers are locked. I'm going to move Sally to the right, off stage. And we will right click and create classic tween. We'll export it out and see what we got. There we go. We got a pretty good looking animation. Sally's walking through downtown Paris. One thing though that I will suggest is to extend this animation a little bit further after she's cleared the stage, to give the transition a little bit more breath or patience, just so it doesn't jump to the next scene uncomfortably. So I'm going to suggest to give it 2 seconds of dead time, and we'll test it out, and if it's too much then we'll reduce it. But to do that, I'm going to come down here to the last frame, and that is 312. So I'm going to add 48 to that because it's 24 frames per second, so 2 seconds. It's 48. Added to 312 is 360. So come over here to 360 and click F5. And let's play it again. Now nothing's going to happen in here. It's just going to be the time before it transitions into the next scene. So 1,000, 1,000. You know, that's pretty good. One thing I did notice, I don't know if you caught it too, which was kind of a good thing we extended it, is that we didn't quite clear the stage, and Sally's tail sort of flicks. So I'm just going to end this and come to the last frame where Sally was on stage, and just move it, holding down Shift slightly off, hit save, and in the next video we'll come back and we'll finish off this background and make this animation look nice and polished.